away maybe a week or two before the beginning of the season.
Absolutely.
We'll plan to put these away. Gage, stay out of them there, buddy.
Oh, come on.
All right. So, Mr. Rosenhaus, what are you doing? Who's this fine young gentleman over here
I brought
with
my
you?
son down. I figured I'm in this part of the state, and he's a junior in high school, so we're checking out some schools, and we'll go right up the street to Ohio Wesleyan in a little bit and take the tour.
Nice school. You haven't been there before at all in any regard?
No. So we'll be learning as we go today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just down the road, 5 minutes or so, and you're set and you're good.
What's the inside scoop? What do you got?
What do you guys think about it? I hear it's a fantastic school.
It's a beautiful facility.
Is it?
Yeah, it was. We checked out Ohio Dominican, Otterbein, and Ohio Wesleyan were the top three that Angie wanted to go to. She was going to be a commuter for the first few years. She has her own place now, but those first few years she was going to commute. So we were mostly looking at mid-Ohio schools, and she went with Otterbein, but that was partly because she wanted to do environmental science, and they have a great program for that. I do think they have a sports management program, too, though, so I would encourage you to check out Otterbein, too.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll put it on the list.
Okay.
Jim, how does the Indians lineup then break down from start to finish, starting at catcher and then throughout the entire starting nine?
Roberto Perez will be back coming off a great season a year ago. His first as a full-time starter in the big leagues, and, man, did he take that opportunity and run with it, and had a just tremendous year, Gold Glove Award winner, and career high in home runs, all that kind of good stuff. So he's back. Carlos Santana will be back at first base, coming off a career year for him, which was pretty neat because he had been away from the team for the 1 year and came back and was ecstatic to be back, and then backed it up with a fine season. Cesar Hernandez, who we talked about earlier, is the new second baseman, came over from the Phillies. Lindor's at short, and then Jose Ramirez is back at third, so real strong on the infield. The outfield will be a work in progress, I think. Some of the names to keep in mind, Oscar Mercado came up, had a real nice rookie season a year ago. Yeah. Jordan Luplow was a nice piece last year, more as a platoon guy. I think Franmil Reyes, who they got from the Padres at the trade deadline, he'll probably see some time in the outfield. I know I'm forgetting some people. Greg Allen will probably be in the mix. He's been up and back the last several years. So there's some pieces to get started with, and some others to think about. Maybe down the road, Bradley Zimmer could be back in the picture too. Delino DeShields, who they got in the Kluber trade, so that's another one. But they may not be done yet in terms of setting the outfield. They might acquire an outfielder or two before spring training, or even during spring training. So that's your position players. DH-wise, it'd probably be Reyes and Santana when they get a break from playing in the field. We went over the starting rotation earlier, and the bullpen, Brad Hand's back as the closer. I know he struggled down the stretch last year, but I think he might have just worn down a little bit from some heavy use early. And then there'll be a lot of changes, I think, in the bullpen, but by the time it's all said and done, I think at the end of spring training, they should be in pretty good shape there.
And Carlos Santana will be the designated guitar player, right?
Hopefully, yeah. When it's not, when he has the occasional day off, I think he'll bust out some tunes.
Kathy wasn't here, so I wanted to get that in for her.
Nicely done.
She would have found that very, very important. Big news the other day. Houston and the suspensions, and then the firings of both the manager and the general manager for cheating. And wow. It's a big story.
It's one of those things that the Indians were impacted because the season in question for them, one of them was 2017, and they met in the postseason, and there were shenanigans going on in the postseason that the Indians were wondering, what is going on here in terms of, they sent an operative down outside our dugout during the game, filming it with his camera phone, what we were doing in our dugout, and that's totally out of bounds and off limits, and so they were popped for stealing signs, basically, electronically. Now, as long as baseball's been around, you have a guy in the dugout who looks at the opposing third base coach, and that's fair. You're trying to figure it out and try and
it's tradition, man.
Right. But to use the technology that's in play because of the replay rules to figure out what signs a catcher is using, that's a no-no, and they were caught. And you wondered, how serious would baseball treat it? And I'll be honest, I was surprised. I'm happy, but I was surprised at how strong the penalties were. And not even so much the money. I mean, $5 million to an organization like Houston probably isn't a whole lot.
Right.
Which is crazy to say because that's a lot of money to all of us. But and losing the draft choices is important, but that's a hammer to suspend your GM and your manager for a year. I give the Astros owner a lot of credit. He came right back, I think, 20 minutes after they were suspended, and he said, you know what, they're gone. They're fired. Because what it does, if you're the owner of that club, you win a World Series in 2017, and it's the greatest moment in their franchise history, and now that's tarnished. I mean, there's not an asterisk. They're not taking away the World Series championship. But everyone in baseball is going to feel that, especially the Dodgers, who they played in the World Series, the Indians, and the Red Sox, who they played in the playoff series leading up to the World Series, those three teams probably feel, hey, maybe we could have won those series. And I don't know if they could have, but it certainly opens up the second guessing and wondering if you could have won that series. And so I think it was awesome what they did.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a warning sign to everyone else. That shan't be allowed. Technology can only come into play so far these days.
Yeah, and then players go back, after their at-bats, and they look at video of their at-bats and things like that. But they may just have to say, you know what? You can't do that now. Do your video work before the game. Prepare before the game on what you need to do video-wise. And then once the game starts, shut it down. You got to stay on the bench or just close down the video rooms, except for the one coach who watches to see about controversial plays if they want to take a look at it review-wise.
Hanging out with Jim Rosenhaus and the Cleveland Indians radio network, also keeping an eye on traffic. If anything pops up here at the last second, we'll let you know about here in just a moment or so. Jim, Mr. 12-Gauge back here, had a couple of different questions for you. What were those 12-Gauge? You wanted to know how they deal with the long rain delays and calling the game and stuff like that. What does Rosie and Tom, what do they do during a 5-hour rain delay? Is that what you want to know?
We send it back to our affiliate stations for regular programming. I know they send some stuff down from the flagship. But you know what? The rain delays turn out, it depends where you are. Some places are better than others. But, I mean, some of the best times, a guy who's going into the Hall of Fame this year, Hawk Harrelson, in the broadcaster's wing, was the longtime TV guy for the White Sox, and a lifetime in baseball. He was a player, a GM, not a manager, but longtime broadcaster. If we had a rain delay with the White Sox, it was the best because he would come in the booth. We'd both be off the air because he sent it back to the station, and he would tell stories. If it was a 2-hour rain delay, he'd fill that 2-hour rain delay just shooting the bull, telling stories, and it was fun. Other places, you might not have that situation, but it's a lot of sitting around hoping the rain stops. And in that case, you were talking about that Mets series we were at. It was the last. We were coming home after the game, and I think there was a delay at the start, and then a delay in the middle, and then it rained again, and it was well past midnight. And our traveling secretary, I want to say we were leaving out of LaGuardia Airport, and they shut it down at a certain hour, maybe 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. They had to make a decision, or we were going to be stuck there overnight because that's where we were flying out of. And so all kinds of things come into play, but it's a lot of sitting around, telling stories, and killing time.
All right. Well, you guys have a great visitation at Ohio Wesleyan University. After you're done, are you going to need some lunch, or are they feeding you there at the school?
I think we're eating at wherever they feed you at the school. We're going to try that and see how that goes.
All right. Well, if you need to stop in later on, a few different spots downtown, maybe a couple of ideas, suggestions for you. What would you suggest, guys? There's a Donato's right there across from the school. Donato's. Head into downtown Delaware. Hamburger Inn, probably someplace you want to stop by and say hello to them. Hamburger Inn, it's an old school diner. Then right across the street, if you're into Cajun and Creole, our buddy Richard over at Jay Gumbo's Cafe.
Nice.
Got some stuff going on.
And that Hamburger Inn sounds good. That could be a winner.
Well, best of luck with the visitation, Nate. Okay? We hope you come around your thing. Love to have you in Delaware town, and set us up for the baseball season, first broadcast, spring training, beginning of the season, all that good stuff.
February 22nd, we'll be on air at 3 o'clock from Goodyear, Arizona, the Indians and the Reds, and then the regular season begins on March the 26th, the Indians at home against the Tigers, weather permitting, and that'll be a 1:10 first pitch at Progressive Field.
Get your Indian parkas ready. You'll need those and your winter caps and everything.
They'll be stocking the gift shop with all kinds of warm gear.
Maybe your mufflers. Thank you very much, Jim. We appreciate the
Thanks for the time.
Have a great visitation. Everything looking good on the roadways, Pam? We pretty much clear there?
Yeah, we're pretty clear except for a problem in the downtown. That's going to be 670 westbound at 315. But if you're heading out of Delaware County, we're in good shape.
Awesome. Everyone have a fantastic Tuesday. We'll be right back here tomorrow on a Wednesday between 6 and 9 with your Mevo.